Hello and welcome to From the Pink Seats podcast. Hosting for you all today is me, producer Keith, and with me, live and on the scene, is our good friends Matt McGavick and Vincent Lococo. We're here to overreact to day one of training camp because football season is finally here.
We never overreact on this show. Never.
Never. So before we dive into camp, first things first, I want to wish a huge thank you to our friends over at Frankfort Avenue Liquors and Wine. Frankfort Avenue Liquors is a locally owned and operated liquor store with a massive selection of liquor, wine, and beer. They have a huge tasting bar with one of the largest bourbon collections that I've seen anywhere around town for you to try, taste, sample, as well as collections of craft beer from local breweries as well. And if that's not enough to get you in the door, they have sales all the time. I think it was 2 days ago they were having espresso martinis on sale. They had bourbon pour sales for the TBT game the other night. So want to encourage you all to support the people who support us. Head on over to Frankfort Avenue Liquors and Wine. So, fellas, day one, we finally made it. It's training camp time.
Finally, we can quit all this TBT talk and all the basketball talk. Baseball season's done.
It's football time.
Yeah,
football. Football.
But I mean, how about Matt and I right now? This is first team all podcasters with podcasting in the truck and
live
in the car.
From the practice facility parking lot.
Yeah, live from Stop and Go Liquor and Banditos.
Yep. So, friendly reminder for those of you tuned in, head on over to the State of Louisville YouTube channel. If you have not yet already, hit that subscribe button. We want to break 1,000 before the start of the regular season, and I know we got enough diehard cards in our fan base to make that happen. So please don't forget to do that. But now, without any further ado, fellas, you gave me a quick little update at the start that we were set. It was going to be outside, first day of training camp. All the nostalgic music was playing. You were ready to go. And then it rained on our parade immediately. And opening day got moved inside the Traeger Center.
Man, I'm laughing with my boss on the way out about going to practice. And he's like, looks like it's starting to rain. And I'm like, yeah, the worst phrase whenever I was a player was, we're headed to the indoor facility. Because you immediately know it's going to be humid, miserable. Yep. I mean, no airflow, nothing. But yeah, Mother Nature definitely threw us a curveball today.
Just a little bit of a curveball, but still, it was finally an opportunity to see guys get out there, make some plays. So, give me a walkthrough. Did you all watch the same blocks? Did you break off, watch separate position groups, do your thing? Let's walk us through the practice session.
To the practice facility, during almost the entire
I was
time.
I was avoiding Matt the whole time.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that Vince was there until in 30, 45 minutes into practice, and we're like, oh, hey, Vince.
Which is good.
We were all just kind of doing our own thing, watching individual practice periods. But hey, that just means we got to see more of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you were with the D-line. I was more with the receivers and stuff. And I could hear Coach McGee talk football all day. I mean, the knowledge and stuff that he's pouring into the kids is unreal. And seeing the details with which these guys coach at, I mean, he's just – a lot of people don't think about pad level. Your naked eye wouldn't think about pad level and stuff at the wide receiver position. You just think, oh, go run the route, get around a guy and make a play. But no, I mean, McGee's had an entire – I'm not going to say a period, but half a period where he's just working on guys, their first move, getting a hand off of them, but also, whenever they're getting that hand off, not just staying square, turning your shoulders to change the point of attack on the DB and stuff. And, man, it's really detailed. And seeing another note, we saw our old offensive coordinator at Trinity there. Andrew Coverdale is working with quality control with quarterbacks, I believe now, which was cool for me and Isaac to see. But man, it was fun. The receivers are fast. Tyler Shuck he's fun. He's going to be fun. So Matt, what were you think? What did you see down there at the D line? It looked like O line was getting after it pretty tough. as hard as they
So-
could with no pads on.
The spiral
Yeah, no
notebook.
kidding.
That's
Yeah, I
how you
mean,
know he came ready.
I was just about to say that. I mean, there's not too much that you could really take away from literally the very first day of camp because I mean, they're just in like helmets. I mean, some guys are in soft shells. They're in literally no pads. So I mean,
Yeah,
they can only do so much. But like, I went down to the defensive line area just to see some of those newcomers. Like in the spring, they added guys like Miles Jernigan, Richard Kinley, Thor Griffith made it to campus. I mean, he was a winter portal ad, but he didn't make it to campus in the spring because he was
right.
finishing up at Harvard as one is supposed to do. So I wanted to go down there and check out some of these newcomers, and I saw Thor, and he's as big as advertised, and especially in his upper body, he's got really really big arms. Watching some of the drills, he's got pop. I think he does need like another like couple weeks to like get back into game shape. If I'm being quite honest, I know he's got super athletic testing numbers. He didn't look super athletic today in the circle drill and things like that, but honestly, someone that came away really impressed with just one day in was Renee Conga, the Rutgers transfer. Because I mean, out of all the defensive transfers, he's like the one guy where I'm like, okay, looking at the stats and this his reps, it doesn't seem like he's going to be like someone they super rely upon. But then Renee Conga, I mean, he's running with the ones first fall camp, and he
Yeah,
actually looks good. He had really good pop in the drills. He had the play of fall camp. I don't know if you caught this, Vince, but it was towards the end, like in the last like 20 or so minutes. It was during the
yeah.
final 11-on-11, and Conga's actively getting blocked like maybe 5 feet away from Shuck, and Shuck lets the ball rip, and Conga lifts up his arm and gets a one-handed interception while getting blocked.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was sick. That was right in front of me, man. I mean, that. I mean, you teach that all the time to defensive linemen. Jump, jump, jump. You're taught as an offensive lineman, break his ribs when he jumps. X, Y,
Punish
and Z.
jumpers.
Yeah, exactly. Punish the jumper. But I mean, this is one of the rare times where I'm like, damn, that shit actually worked. Like,
Yeah.
I was impressed, man. You want to talk about newcomers? Like Ja'Cory Brooks is leaps and bounds. I think our best wide receiver, and it's that get off that he has at the line of scrimmage. You could tell in the individual works that they were doing. Just he's a lot more fundamentally sound of making guys miss and getting guys off of him.
Yeah.
They were working on that one hand press and stuff like that. But his deep ball threats, Chuck had probably 2 deep balls to him that he overthrew just barely. And in my opinion, Chuck, one of them looked like a corner post where Ja'Cory stuck outside and came back and was coming to go into the post. And it looked like Shuck waited until his like second step out of that break, maybe first step out of that break to throw that deep ball. And he ends up overthrowing him where if he just throws it immediately out of that break, I mean, Ja'Cory puts his foot in the ground. You've already got it read. You know you're going there. He puts the foot in the ground. Go ahead and let that thing fly and let Ja'Cory track the ball. Stuff like that is stuff you expect to clean up and everything, but you can tell that the deep balls look a lot more threatening this year opposed to last year. Last year it looked like we were throwing them just for reps and to throw them because you have to. But
Yeah.
this one, it seemed like it was done with more of a purpose to score touchdowns.
I will say it did seem like it was very much a get the jitters out when it comes to like trying to get the deep threat going because they did.
For sure.
The quarterbacks did kind of overthrow quite often. It didn't matter who was in there, whether it was Shuck, Pierce, Brady, Harrison. Like every one of them had their fair share of overthrows. So it wasn't for a lack of trying, like you said, Vince. They're actively trying to like give the vertical passing attack like as part of their offense and get the things going, but like. Today maybe was not the best, but they missed long instead of missed short because if you miss short, that's a pick.
Yeah.
So
I'd much rather you miss long in that situation.
And for like you mentioned, Vince, training camp is what this is for, to get that sort of route timing figured out, to figure out what I need to do to throw a guy open. And it's so refreshing to hear, oh yeah, we were missing a couple of guys on overthrows, but it happened, as opposed to, he underthrew it by 5 yards. He had to basically stop, go up, make a contested catch to prevent a pick. And while I've got things, before we continue, I want to remind all of you all who happen to be watching either on Facebook or on Twitter, head on over to the State of Louisville YouTube channel if you want to hop in our chat room. Matt, Vince, and I are going to be on for, I think we're going to shoot for like a 30-minute session today. If you have any questions, head on over to the YouTube channel, hop into the live chat, fire those questions at us, and if we can, we'll happily get to them and answer as we go along. So, back to day one practice. So it sounded like the first sessions were position individual drills going on. So
Yeah, your
And
typical
they
stuff.
had some
Yeah.
7-on-7s and some 11-on-11s, but it was mainly just positional type stuff.
The thing that I loved, and I'm super happy we brought back with Coach Braun. We didn't do this under Satterfield, did it under Coach Petrino. Was half line Skelly, and forcing that quarterback to say you only got this side of the ball to throw to. Figure it out. It helps him just get those reads so much better, and it confines that. It's like playing a half court offense. You have to be able to run a half court offense.
Well, that's something that was really effective in the development of Cam Newton in college, was that they essentially ran a lot of passing games early on in his career as if it was half line skeleton, just so he only had to read half of the field.
Yeah.
So you love to see that they're going out doing things like that. Anyone particularly jump off the page? I know we talked a little bit about Ja'Cory Brooks. We talked about Thor Griffith looking huge, Renee Conga impressing. Anyone else sort of jump off the pages at the early phases of practice?
There wasn't really an opportunity for someone to jump out because they rotated a lot. Like in the first 5, 6, 7 reps, they'd already rotated in like the ones and twos and getting into the threes. So it was really hard for someone to consistently rep after rep after rep, really stand out because they were just rotating in and out so quickly. But I mean, they have the depth to be able to do that, and that's something you're going to want to be able to do come game day, is be able to keep the ones fresh. So I mean,
the one that does not need to come off the field, and I mean, number 9 on defense today. I mean, I know we are in no pads, but he probably would have walked away with 4 sacks. He has one of the quickest get-offs I've seen out of dudes that I've been around at Louisville. I mean, that first step and his hand movement, if you don't get your initial hand on him with that block, you whiff Keith, you're done. You're screwed. And I mean, there were multiple occasions where Ashton is just either causing the quarterback to step up or he is getting that sack. And it's Quincy Riley too had an interception on the day. Quincy, it's exactly like what I was talking about in the offseason with him coming back, him knowing this defense like the back of his hand and being able to play a little bit more freely. I mean, he was in a cover 2 setting where he's got the flats, but he's also, what they like to do a lot of times is put the corner in a bind. They'll throw the back out, throw a swing route, and then they'll throw an out route right behind that to put make a decision. We'll either throw it to the running back or we'll throw it to that guy behind you. But Quincy, he took away. It's perfect zone. This is why the corners have their eyes on the quarterback. So he's sinking. Eyes are on the quarterback, right? And he's not sinking too far. He's just sinking enough to play coverage on that out route coming behind him, but also on that swing route right there. So as soon as Shuck looked off of that swing route, Quincy was just right there. And I mean, his interception too was a pretty one. He basically ran the curl route for the dude. I mean,
yeah.
I'm standing there with Travis Taylor, and he's like, well, that was a mistake. And I was like, well, the first mistake is looking to Quincy Riley's side, thinking you're going to complete the damn ball.
So Vince taking the chalk there with saying the 2 main NFL prospects were the ones that really shined today.
Dude, you should. You were the 2 guys. When we were at practice with Lamar, you didn't have to sit there and say, oh, I think that's Lamar Jackson. I think that's Jair Alexander. Yeah, I think that's Mekhi Becton. No, they went out there and they showed you why I'm X, Y, and Z. MJ Griffin too. MJ Griffin looked great today. It's so fun to see him running around. Ronaldo Brown was in the mix a lot today. I mean, he looks really good coming off that knee injury, size wise and everything. A lot of offensive linemen, you get hurt like that. I mean, linemen, them boys love to eat, so.
Yeah. It does seem like the O-line does have some lingering injury because I saw plenty of Austin.
Uh-oh.
And Jonathan Mendoza the entire day, and it was Rasheed Miller, that the transfer from Georgia Southern. He was the one that got the majority of the first team reps at right tackle. So I mean, Mendoza didn't have any wraps or braces or anything on there, so it must be one of those things where they might be just keeping him out for a precaution or not anything super serious. But that was at least something noteworthy.
So, just from the brief you guys have given me, instant overreaction. Elvis Dumerville, your 20 sacks in a single season record's in trouble because Ashton's coming to eat.
Well, no, it's Elvis and Gerard Holloman. That's my day one overreaction.
Right.
Both those guys' records should be right now. But
Well,
Matt, I don't know about you, man. It's the first day of practice. Shuck looked good, right?
He did.
But what'd you think about those other guys? I was watching, and it's like
you got to say the name Vince.
Pierce, Harrison, and I can't remember that. Oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me. Who's the other guy? Matt.
Brady Allen, come on.
Brady Allen.
Pierce Clarkson.
Yeah. No, I was waiting. I could see it turning. Like, you can get it.
I got Tom, and I couldn't remember Tom Brady's last name. Yeah,
Tom.
I knew. But
with Pierce, I mean, he put on displays like his arm ability, obviously, but what really stood out to me with him was his pocket escapability, because that and him being able to sell the play action, I think he did probably the best in terms of that out of all the guys that we saw out there. And like when there was pressure coming, obviously in fall camp, when you've got a free blitzer coming and they're obviously going to let up and they're not going to actually sack the QB, and the QB's still got a chance to actually, make the play downfield. But Pierce was actively trying to avoid that pressure because he's treating it like he would in game, and the entire time while he's kind of escaping the pocket trying to get away from the pressure, he's still keeping his eyes downfield trying to make the play. So while he has broken the pocket, he hasn't broken into like scramble now mode. He's still trying to look downfield and trying to make the play. Admittedly, I didn't see a lot of Harrison Bailey. I mean, of the few throws that he had, I mean, they looked good. I mean, nothing that we haven't seen out of Harrison Bailey. And with Brady Allen, I swear I have seen good things in a Brady Allen before, because it seems like every time that I talk about him on this podcast or I write about it, it seems like I'm always shitting on him. But out of all the QBs that got a lot of action, he seems to play with the least amount of confidence, if that makes sense, Vince. And plus, there were a couple times where he was just holding on to the ball way too long, and there were a couple of reps where, because I was standing next to Keith Wynn, and we were watching a 7-on-7 period where he was in there, and there was a wide receiver streaking up the seam, wide open. Brady Allen didn't even see him.
I know exactly what play you're talking about. Jamari Johnson was going down the seam on that, and we had a touchdown. That's why I asked you, is because I honestly expected more, Pierce included, out of that entire backup quarterback group. I don't expect them to push Tyler Shuck for the job, but I expected a little bit more consistency, at least with it being, no pads. You're not getting hit by a defensive lineman. I don't know. I just expected more completion. It seems like, with Pierce, Brady, and Harrison, like the half-line Skelly stuff, that was like eating them up, because it's like they stare down receivers. It's you make it real easy on me if you're just going to be staring at the guy. I just want to see. It's day one of camp. But these are also guys that have been here for a full year. They've been through spring ball and everything. They've been through, player-led practices. Like, I just expected more of a stride. And I'm sure they'll take that stride as the year and fall camp goes on. But I expected a little bit more on day one of fall camp, at least. And
it just seems like that they struggled to get the vertical game going, period, because they, like I said earlier, overshot a lot today.
Yeah. And it's not like you have a realistic running game at all with no pads on. Like, I mean, that was another thing I was going to add, is like, you couldn't tell jack shit from the running backs today, because, I mean, like, they're getting touched. Like, that's like the biggest way to get these damn running backs and people hurt, is like not having pads on, having them run through holes. That shit used to scare the hell out of me.
The only thing that I think I could take away from the running backs today was that, obviously, Maurice Turner got the very first rep. Don Chaney was right behind him. He got a lot of reps. Isaac Brown got a lot of reps too. And it wasn't until like 20 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes into the 11-on-11s that I even saw Kewan Brown. So I didn't see much of
Interesting.
him today, so I saw a lot more of Isaac Brown than I saw Keywan Brown.
Mo Turner took one to the crib, if I'm not mistaken. He took
Oh
a
yeah, no,
long, which would
he
have been
got
a clear. Yeah, go ahead.
he got skinny on a run right up the middle, and there was like one guy to beat, and it was a safety who was like 20 yards down. So that would have been
Yeah,
probably a
that
touchdown.
seemed realistic. It's always hard to tell the push too with the offensive line. I mean, it's no pads is just hard to evaluate. I mean, Ashton, like I said, had like 4 sacks today at the same time, but you know as good as anybody, Keith, it's hard as hell to block a defensive lineman without
Yeah,
any freaking pads on. Y'all ain't got shit to
Yeah,
grab.
exactly.
for real.
So, a position group that we haven't really talked about a ton yet that I think is going to be a big impact this year is the tight ends.
Yep.
So, I know there were a lot of people out there live tweeting updates, and my boy, someone I was hyping up, I heard Dylan Messman making some noise. But
He
how
did
did
get
the
involved a couple times. Yeah.
how did the tight end room as a whole look today? Because I mean, that was probably the position that changed the most out of everybody on this team.
I'd say it looked good, not great. I mean, obviously, I wasn't going to expect Mark Redmond to light the world on fire today, but he didn't really make a few plays until like the latter half of fall camp of this practice. Now, granted, it's practice one, so I'm sure he's going to get plenty of reps, and it's his first practice at Louisville because he spent the last semester at San Diego State. So but I was a little bit surprised to see him not get as much in the mix. I don't think I saw much of Jaleel Skinner at all today. Jamari Johnson, he did look good a couple of times, though he didn't really get involved too much though. Though I will say Nate Kariski, he's made some real strides.
For sure. Yeah.
He made he made a lot of strides. How am I trying to say this? I'm trying to speak while it's extremely hot in my car, so that's
You
difficult.
He got
got to
better in the
maintain your
offseason.
composure.
Yeah,
Me on the other, I loved watching Jamari today. For me, it was the effort that I liked a lot. It seemed just polar opposite to what we saw from him in the bowl game with understanding the playbook, where he's lining up, the communication he has with the quarterback, with his coaches, with the guys signaling. It's encouraging. It's what you want to see in a kid that's supposed to be that good, making strides in the right direction. Like Matt said, he went straight down the seam for what should have been a touchdown if quarterback would have looked his way. That's what I think we'll see a lot out of Jamari. I think he could be a decent deep threat for us. That is kind of unexpected in a lot of ways because you're covering Colin Lacey, you're covering Ja'Cory Brooks, you're covering all these other dudes. You're going to forget about Jamari Thrash streaking down the sideline in a cover three, or you'll forget about him running a deep out or something like that. I guarantee it.
I didn't
I
know
want
he
to see
still
him
had
blocking.
another.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought Brass didn't know.
I
Yeah,
just wanted to bust your
whatever.
chops.
I
No,
mean, we're in the middle of a hot car. What do you want from me?
yeah, keep rolling,
yeah.
Vince. He was blocking.
Yeah, I want to see him blocking. No, I want to see that, like with pads on. He looks bigger. That's another thing is all these dudes will look bigger too. I don't know if I'm just shrinking or what.
I was going to ask about, like, I know.
You preaching over there, Matt?
Yeah, it's
Hey,
it's a little hot in here.
if you need to mute to bust open the car door, let some of that cool rain air in between questions, feel free. Let me know. But one of the questions I did have was one of the things we talked about on the podcast was the conditioning and physique of a few players last season and in the off season. How did they actually physically look coming into training camp? Anybody have a little too much fun over the summer and it showed? People really busting ass in the gym and it showed?
There were
Or
guys going down with cramps today, but that's expected in my book.
oh yeah,
Every experience I had with going from outside to indoor, there's at least like 5 dudes that go down with cramp, and myself would likely be in that bunch too at some point. But out of shape and stuff wise, no, man. I don't think you could. I wouldn't consider any of them out of shape. I wouldn't say that it looked like anybody had too much fun this summer. I mean, I look at dudes like Dwayne Martin, who I've seen from a 17, 18-year-old high schooler to now. I'm like, you are built like a brick shithouse at this point in your career. Like, it is insane. So the size on these, and it's the toneness. Like, you look at like Renato Brown's arms, you look at the offensive lineman's arms. It's not just a big, piece of fat or an arm or anything. It's like cut too, which is sick to see on an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like there might have been a couple guys who were maybe a little bit above playing weight, but I think they were mainly offensive linemen, which, I mean, you're trying to get them big and fat anyways. You just got to convert some of that to muscle. So I wouldn't look too far into it. I think they'll be fine.
The victims of the dirty bulk.
Exactly.
I'm so dirty bulking.
So, I've been dirty bulking for the last decade plus, baby. So, before we move on, there was one last thing I wanted to chat about that wasn't practice related. So before we move on to the last little conversation piece that popped up as we were going live, anything else jump off the screen at practice today that you want to particularly call out?
Nothing from me. I loved watching the defense move around, man. Seeing guys like TJ Quinn, Stanquan Clark, be a lot more comfortable vocalizing things, seeing guys move freely. It seemed like you didn't have a lot of miscues on the back end with the DBs. You know, a lot of times if the offense throws a motion, jet motion, fly motion, or something in there, you might have the safety looking at the other safety, throwing their arms up, expecting somebody to rotate when it really shouldn't be happening. You didn't see a lot of that. Everybody looked crisp. I thought everybody looked crisp today.
And while we're on the linebackers, I did think someone that did kind of stand out and make a couple plays was Geronte Davis, that Texas A&M transfer. Yeah. I mean, he's someone who I think should have a somewhat decent role on the defense next season, just upcoming season, just because out of all the position groups on defense, I think linebacker is probably the one where you don't have as much depth as you have everywhere else. And he made a couple of plays. He forced a couple PBUs like on impact. He was good against the run. Now, granted, everyone looked good against the run today because you're not supposed to like really hit the running backs. But you know,
I'm the best tackler of all time with no pads on, bro.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to call out one last call. If you want to get some questions popped into the chat, I wish we could still take them on Twitter. Unfortunately, administration changes over at that site have made things a bit more difficult on the collaboration with other site sides. So unfortunately, we can't see those on this end anymore. So if you want to get some questions in, hop on over to the State of Louisville YouTube channel. And if you like what we're doing, feel free to drop a subscribe while we're there. But we've talked about day one of practice. We've got a couple of overreactions in. And now, right as we were going live, the ACC preseason poll finally dropped. And fellas, Boston College, Cal, Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech all got more first-place votes than Louisville. So I want to give our media a small round of applause for not being obnoxious homers. The overall standings, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, I don't think there's a particular surprise there. No. Then NC State 4th, Louisville 5th. That was decided by about 400 voting points. I think a lot of that's going to be contributed to a bunch of people taking the NC State bait with them getting 8 first-place votes out of, I believe it was 170 total that were cast.
Yeah.
So then Vatech, SMU, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Cal, Duke, Hughes, Pitt, Boston College receiving a first-place vote, Wake, Virginia, and then Stanford in the cellar.
It was not me. Keith asked me about it before we went on air, and it was not me.
Okay.
AJ Dillon and Matt Ryan aren't walking through those doors.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Man.
Zay Flowers ain't walking through that door.
Matt and I were talking earlier. It's interesting that NC State's ranked above us. Matt, you go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I was kind of surprised with. Now, I know the ACC media down there really loves themselves and they love the Carolinas, so I guess I shouldn't be too terribly surprised. But I mean, NC State, their offense wasn't super great last year, but they did bring in Grayson McCall. Casey Concepcion was a really good wide receiver. They just don't really have a run game. At least I don't remember off the top of my head.
They also lost Peyton Wilson on the defense, and that dude was a borderline superhero.
They still have plenty of defensive talent, so I don't think is unfair because I know Aiden White's. I think he's probably going to, when the ACC preseason team comes out tomorrow, I think it's going to be Aiden White and Quincy Riley who get the cornerback spots. So I mean, NC State still has talent defensively, so that I don't blame people for hyping them up for. It's just that offensively, it's kind of a wait and see type thing. So
Where do you think
I get that
Where do you think Ashton Gelati will end on that list tomorrow?
Well, he'll get a nod for sure. I think for sure, Ashton. I think Quincy should be on the preseason All ACC team. If there's any other Louisville player who might have a chance, it's Michael Gonzalez at offensive guard. But
Yep.
we know for sure Ashton's going to be on there. But it's going to be interesting to see if both Quincy and Mike get on there as well.
So, any other instant reactions about the ACC preseason poll?
I still find it crazy that people think Miami's any worth a shit. I just don't get it.
I'll butt heads with you on that one because
they're really good.
The talent on that roster is unreal. If Louisville and Miami traded head coaches, Miami would be a national championship contender. Like, that talent is unreal on that team.
I'm still not sold on Cam Ward, though. I don't think Cam Ward would be the quarterback of that football team if Jeff Brom was the head coach. I think he would be looking for a new school. I do. I do not think he has the right head case. I think he's a head case. I just think he's a mess. I do. Right. And it stuff like that shows in that video we talked about with Shedeur and all those guys. Like, if you can't show up for a voluntary workout with your homeboys on time and then you get called out for it and act like a little baby, how do you react when your teammate checks you on something you think you should be knowing? Not well. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's dudes like that. Yeah. It's a fact. They'll win 8 games this year.
All right. Vince Lococo guarantee.
Is it like the Vince Lococo Duke guarantee?
Which was what?
Hey, I mean, he wasn't wrong last year. They're starting.
They were banged up to hell and back, though.
Oh, now we're back. Oh. Forgot injuries. We forgot to turn injuries off. My bad. Yeah.
So the biggest question I sort of had about it was Florida State I guess I shouldn't say winning as handily as they did because Clemson was also up there pretty close, but Florida State being voted first place despite the large amount of talent they lost, that kind of surprised me. Like, I figured they'd be 2 or 3, but I thought Miami would be more popular with the voters, and I thought Clemson would be more popular, but people still believe in the Noles.
Yeah, they still have it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
They still have a talented roster. They just lost a lot to the NFL draft. I mean, and plus, there are a lot of people, myself included, who are still very high on DJ Uiagalelei. Like I'm very high on him.
Don't include me in that club.
Yeah, I know. And plus, there's a few other guys like Patrick Payton, and they still have the horses to be able to compete for sure. I mean, are they going to be as talented as they were last year? Probably not. But I still think they're better than Clemson right now.
I agree with you. They were comparing 2 of their defensive linemen to Jared Burris and the white guy. His name's slipping my mind. He was at the Rams too with them.
Fisk?
Yeah, Fisk.
Yeah.
So
God.
I don't know if it was a Florida State beat writer or somebody that was comparing some of the defensive linemen they had to those two. And I mean, if they're sniffing anywhere close to that, that's not going to be fun.
Yeah. So maybe I've just been listening to Eric McElwain too much because I'm still really high on Clemson.
Crazy, man. I don't get it. I don't get the Clemson.
Listen, Clemson's defense is very good. Clemson's defense is elite. They might have the best defense in the ACC.
No offense.
But their offense, I am not sold on. I'm not completely sold on Cade Klubnik. I think Phil Moffitt's a great running back, but you lose Will Shipley, so that's a chunk of your running game. And, I mean, they've been known, Clemson's been known for having, like, elite wide receivers under Dabo Swinney because that's what Swinney is. He's a receivers coach. And there's no one on this current wide receiving core that really scares me.
He's the receivers coach?
He was. That's how he came up as a coach.
That would have been miserable to play for.
Yeah. And plus, like, Garrett Riley did such great things as the OC at TCU, and I get it. I get that it's a 1-year sample size, but you would think Clemson should have been a lot better than what they were last year offensively. So I don't think they'll be able to move the ball that well. I don't.
All right. And then, so no quarrels with where Louisville's at least with the media voting on paper. We're right there in the same sort of tier of votes as NC State and Virginia Tech. No quarrels with that. I think that on paper.
I don't think we should be anywhere near VT, but
VT's a weird team. They're getting a lot of hype this offseason.
They're getting a lot of pseudo top 25 attention.
The fighting Stu Holtz.
Honestly, I'd love it if Virginia Tech's a top 25 team. That means the ACC has 6 top 25 teams at least.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Need that.
So, if nothing else, we did get a question in the chat. So, Lawrence Bell asking the question, are we going to be able to get a touchdown in the red zone this year?
I didn't see any red zone work today.
There was. That's like the one thing they didn't do today was red zone work. It was all in the middle of the field.
Oh no!
So, I would expect, obviously, to us rely on the heavy running game with having an experienced fullback and having heavier set running backs in the game, and the bigger dudes up front. I mean, I would expect Jeff to lean into that run heavy on towards the red zone goal line area, but at the same time, dudes like Colin Lacey give you such a advantage in the red zone, being able to attack in such a small space at such a quick speed. So I would expect us to use him a lot more as well. We'll use him completely. We haven't used him yet. So, yeah.
All right. Well, for those of you who jumped in late, we want to thank you all for hopping in just to have a little chat about day one of training camp practice. Football season is here. If you hopped in and missed the beginning of it, this will be uploaded and live on the State of Louisville YouTube page. I think it takes like 20 minutes for it to process once we wrap up, but it'll be up and available for you to dive in, check it out. Again, I want to wish a huge thanks to our friends over at Frankfort Avenue Liquors and Wine. Support the people who support us. That's Matt McGavick. That's Vince Lococo. I'm producer Keith, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of From the Pink Seats. Go Cards!